I'm Jenny Gage, and this is Life Take Two. Hey, everybody, welcome to Life Take Two. I'm Jenny. I know there's a lot of great stuff out there on YouTube. I always appreciate you stopping on one of my videos. Please do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. I have some great guests coming up this week that I know that you're not going to want to miss. Now, I'm going to give you a little warning right off the top here that I don't know if I completely know how to be sensitive to the topic we're going to dive into in this video, and I'm not sure that I will always be using the correct verbiage and everything, even though I've carefully researched to make sure that I'm doing everything right. You have to remember, I was MAGA just 2 years ago. I am almost 52 years old, so there's a learning curve. I'm just trying my hardest to present my thoughts in the best way that I possibly can. And I also want you to know that I'm not just guessing at this stuff. I'm not just out here like, here's my idea on stuff. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to pull back the curtain and I'm going to be sharing with you the things that I heard at the dinner table, in my young women's class, at the ward potluck. Like, this is me shining a spotlight on my MAGA Christian life. Right now, there's a lot of conversation about Renee Good being a white woman and how that's why white people and these dangerous wine moms that they've been talking about on Fox News are protesting. That's why Minneapolis is being torn apart. That's why this has really been a tipping point for so many people, because everybody was fine with undocumented workers being taken because they were brown-skinned, but now that a white woman was attacked, now we're all engaged in this. And yes, I do think that for a lot of people it landed like that. I do think that a lot of white Americans are more engaged in this, unfortunately, because a white woman was killed than they maybe were before. Although I have to say that all of my friends, everybody that I know, my other creator friends, my journalist friends, my politician friends, and just like my girlfriends and my neighbors, we've all been engaged in this since the beginning. I wish that I could show you my courtyard, but I don't want to give like too much information about where I live. There's not a window that I see outside of my window that hasn't had little protest signs hanging in them since Trump was elected. I was laying in bed this morning thinking about everything. That is now what I do full time since Donald Trump was sworn in. And I was thinking, what if I was driving that SUV in Minnesota? Okay. My blonde Utah curls, too much blush, like I always wear, maybe this exact little fuzzy flannel, maybe not. What if I was wearing the very controversial Coors t-shirt that I wore in a video yesterday that I got flack for? That's actually Kevin's t-shirt, with my flirty little church girl voice and a Starbucks in one hand. Now let's take this a little bit further. What if instead of Becca Good on that other side of the vehicle, what if my tall white partner was standing on that side of the vehicle? Kev always wears a cross necklace. He usually has some type of a tractor or a Jeep shirt. He was a farmer. He has a lot of Jesus shirts that he wears. Kevin just looks like one of the guys. He has the military haircut and he's such a guy's guy. So what if Kevin, who just looks like one of the guys in his very manly voice, which I think is quite sexy, what if he said all the exact same stuff that Becca Good said? Even the, drive baby drive. I'll tell you what I think. I don't think that any of this would have happened. Here's what we need to do. We need to talk about a December 4th memo from Homeland Security. A Justice Department memo calls for a cash reward system that would encourage Americans to report suspected domestic terrorist activity. The memo says domestic terrorism could be inspired by a number of things, such as opposition to law and immigration enforcement, or support for, this is the important bit, listen to this, radical gender ideology. The memo focuses on what it calls Antifa-aligned extremism and omits mentions of rising domestic threats such as violent white supremacy. So this memo is very biased. White supremacy is a big deal. They completely ignore that. They focus on Antifa. So Justice Department leadership has directed the FBI to compile a list of groups or entities engaged in acts that may constitute domestic terrorism by the start of next year, and to establish a cash reward system that incentivizes individuals to report on their fellow Americans. According to a memo reviewed by The Times, law enforcement agencies are directed in the memo dated December 4th to identify domestic terrorists who use violence or the threat of violence to advance political and social agendas, including adherence to radical gender ideology, anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, or anti-Christianity. The memo also outlines what it says are causes of domestic terrorist activity, including hostility towards traditional views on family, religion, and morality. Federal law enforcement will prioritize this threat. Where federal crime is encountered, federal agents will act. So, did you catch that bit there? It lists causes of domestic terrorist activity as including hostility towards traditional views on family, religion, and morality. Some national security experts said the memo represents a dramatic operational shift by directing federal prosecutors and agents, like the ICE agent in Minnesota, to approach domestic terrorism in a way that is ideologically one-sided. At worst, critics said the memo provides legal justification for criminalizing free speech. Please read this article. It does go on to say how that groups such as the American Civil Liberties Union have expressed alarm over the new policy, which could be used by the Justice Department to target civil society groups and democratic individuals and entities with burdensome investigations. I think that if the type of woman that MAGA men like was driving that SUV and that she had the type of partner that MAGA men approve of, specifically a white guy, this would not have happened. I'm not going to go any further into the politics or the legality of any of this. Free speech, the ICE agent in Minnesota, anything like that. What I want to do is pull back the curtain and explain what I observed inside of MAGA Christianity. If you want to read about why I left MAGA, please go to the link in the description for leavingmaga.org and read my article there. If you're considering leaving MAGA yourself or you know somebody who has, then please fill out their form so that you can also tell your story and be part of this amazing group. MAGA Christian men hate women who don't center men. Lesbians, single cat ladies, wine moms. This one was so weird to me. That Fox News article about the wine mom domestic terrorists just blew me away. But then as I thought about it, it's like, here's why they hate them. Because they're at home enjoying themselves during the day while their husbands are off at work. According to these men, they should be cooking and cleaning and having all the little babies. So if he has to suffer at the office, climbing the career ladder, she should suffer at home and not just be sitting around enjoying wine all day. At the root of it, these MAGA men are just selfish as hell. They feel like they work really hard for their stuff and they just don't want to share. I remember a day at the beach when I was a young mom and my 5-year-old son built a sandcastle. And then he spent the entire rest of the day just standing there, guarding it, making sure that nobody kicked it, making sure that no seagulls landed on it or anything. I don't even think he got in the water at all or did anything other than just guard his sandcastle. That's basically the life of a MAGA man. They spend all of their energy protecting their fragile little lives. And the MAGA men are afraid that lesbians are going to make them incels because, those women are taken out of the dating game. And then all their hard work is for nothing because they don't have kids to pass stuff down to. They don't have that legacy. They don't have their daddy dreams, And they're afraid Mexicans will steal their jobs and then they'll have to work even harder than they already are. I don't know how many of you caught the ridiculous statement by J.D. Vance where he said that there is no affordable housing because of Mexicans. And it's like, they are making housing more affordable. I don't know about anybody else, but here in Arizona, the Mexicans do a lot of the labor. Rarely do I see a white boy laying concrete or roofing or framing anything. They don't do it. We have houses because of Mexicans. So thank you to all of the skilled Mexican laborers, the men who built America, which we originally stole from them. Anyway, what else are these boys afraid of? They are afraid Democrats will raise their taxes. They're afraid cat ladies who prioritize careers will steal their jobs, and they should be afraid of that because we are. Watch out, buddies. This sounds like me being insensitive, but this is actually stuff that I heard my whole entire life growing up. I heard this one so much growing up from the alt-right guys in my community. They're afraid of black guys because they've heard once you go black, you never go back. Some of my white guy friends acted like the black guys were using some type of voodoo to seduce women. And yeah, the first time I ever dated a black guy, I realized the voodoo is, first of all, he was fine, like 10 out of 10. And also, he actually gave a crap about me, which most of the white boys did not. And here's the deal. If they can never land a baby mommy because all of us are out there being lesbians and they can't have jobs because the Mexicans are stealing them, you can't even get a single date with a blonde because she found out the black guys are better. And some cat lady just got promoted instead of you. And they have zero value to the world without the babies and the job and the woman and all this stuff. Lesbians and Mexicans and Democrats and the wine moms and everybody, they threaten their very core identity. And what that does is it turns them into control freaks and douchebags. And they are control freaks and douchebags because they are dog paddling so hard to keep this patriarchal system afloat. And it's a sinking ship and they know it. So two lesbians, even with smiles on their faces, being very nice, very polite, would have been seen by these ICE agents, by these MAGA Christian men, would have been seen in the same category as a brown-skinned couple with a Mexican accent and no papers. Those ICE agents did not see Renee and Becca as one of them at all. Cults always have an in-group and an out-group, the wheat and the tares, the good and the evil, the members and the non-members, the believers and the non-believers, the righteous and the sinners, us and them. Renee and Becca were them. I've seen this all week long in some of the MAGA pages that I spy on. Comments that I don't want to post or read here on my channel. You're free to go to Fox News or anywhere and read about this story and see what MAGA Christian men are saying about Renee and Becca Good. It's gut-wrenching. I don't need to read the comments because I spent my whole life hearing my boyfriends and my ex-husband and my dad and my brothers and my neighbors and the guys at church talking about the lesbians and how much they sucked and talking about how the Mexicans were taking their jobs, bashing on working women, women's libbers. That was an actual cuss word in my house. The word women's libber, like that was the most despicable thing that a woman could do with her life. It's so important for us to understand what MAGA is thinking right now. And it's even more important for us to be there to support and protect these vulnerable populations. Let me end with the words of the famous poet John Donne. No man is an island complete unto himself. Ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. I'll be hanging out in the comments, everybody. Thanks for watching. Mwah.